Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Wyld. Today we are talking about mass deactivations in the gig economy. The gig economy has created opportunities for millions of workers across platforms like Uber, DoorDash, Instacart, Amazon Flex, and countless others. Yet, while these platforms promote strong flexibility and independence, one alarming trend threatens the livelihood of countless drivers, couriers, and delivery workers, and that is mass deactivation. And while some of these deactivations are totally justifiable, sometimes it is just the equivalent of a mass layoff and uproots the lives of a lot of people, and it's not for valid reasons, at least in my opinion. So in this video, we are talking about everything you must know about mass deactivations in the gig economy, what these platforms are saying for the most part, such as DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Amazon Flex, Instacart, etc., versus how it actually is, and everything in between. But before we do that, let's go over a quick disclaimer. The content of this video does not contain, is never intended to be, legal, business, financial, tax, or health advice of any kind. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is advised that you conduct your own research and consult qualified professionals before applying anything you find online. I also want to be clear that everything that we're going to be going over is very market to market and case by case, and what applies to me and my market may not apply to you. So with that said, let's get started. What are mass deactivations in the gig economy? Mass deactivations occur when gig platforms simultaneously remove a large number of workers from their apps, and often with very minimal explanation. Most deactivations are minimal explanation, but there's no real due process, and the appeals system is really just a way for you to waste your time, because you'll try to appeal it, and a lot of cases they'll just brush you off, or they may let back some people, but they're really getting rid of a bunch of people for no reason. And for workers, this sudden loss of access can feel like being laid off without notice, severance, or unemployment protection. And again, we're gig workers. We are not classified as employees, so we aren't expecting severance or unemployment, but we are expecting to have a valid reason of why we were deactivated. The reasons vary for the most part, and sometimes linked to policy changes, fraud protection systems, or customer complaints. But the lack of transparency makes it especially devastating, because many workers only discover they've been deactivated when they try to log in and they find themselves locked out. And they get some very generic screen saying there was a violation that occurred. Like, what is that supposed to mean? How mass deactivations impact gig workers' income and stability. The impact that this has on gig workers in America is not simply financial. Yes, that is a big part of it, but it is also an emotional thing, and it's also a deep one, especially if it's one of the first times this happened. Financial instability is probably the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of gig workers, because for many, gig work isn't simply a side hustle. It's their main source of income, or it's a significant amount that allows them to make the ends meet, because if they don't have this, their job ain't cutting it under normal circumstances. And a sudden deactivation can leave workers unable to pay their bills, pay their rent, or support their families. And in our current economy, most people are working at least one job or one gig app that pays decent. Loss of investment. Workers often invest in vehicles, insurance, fuel, and maintenance to stay on these platforms, and deactivation can turn these investments into sunk costs overnight. That's why I almost don't want to get a cargo van in a lot of cases, because if I get a cargo van and I can't sustain work on that cargo van, why would I want to invest such a high cost onto my business? Like, I already experienced that once with a previous investment for business. Why would I want to do that again? Just imagine trying to better your life with or upgrade some equipment to do your job, and suddenly you get deactivated for no real reason. And then there's the psychological toll of it all, because beyond the financial hit, workers describe feelings of betrayal, anxiety, and helplessness when years of reliable service and giving their absolute best to a gig app is erased with an algorithmic decision, an unruly customer that made a false report, or they just don't want to work with you anymore because you got too good at your job. It was never about how good you were and how many deliveries you completed. It was about how you shifted from being an asset to a company as a new driver who didn't know base pay from their elbow to a liability who learned how to make money on the platform effectively and actually profit. When I was deactivated from certain platforms, it was frustrating and it filled me with a level of rage that I knew would last a while. And the first time this happens is always the worst. A pit of rage that built up in my chest, the despair of not having a well-established income portfolio yet at the time, and lost nights of sleep between the PTSD of doing your best to the dread of trying to figure out what's next with your head in your hands. There are people who say getting deactivated by a heartless platform is bad, but what makes it worse is when the people you know have hearts and feelings choose to block you off just as much. This makes it feel like just another corporate America that has even less support than the legal boundaries of having an employment-based system that the W-2 employee world has. And it's a pain that truly sticks with you. Why gig platforms mass deactivate workers and what they don't tell you. Gig companies cite safety, fraud prevention, quality control as justifications for large-scale removals, and they argue that automated systems help maintain trust with customers. However, critics point out algorithms are often flawed and may wrongly flag workers. Companies rarely provide detailed explanations and just call it a deactivation or a violation has occurred. And the appeals process is slow, confusing, ineffective, or just there for show in a lot of cases. Like, they get instantly denied as soon as they put it in. Like, that's not an appeals process. That's getting instantly denied. Setting it up so that way, if they put it in the system, 5 days later, automated email will be sent out just for them to pretend as if they actually looked at it and didn't. And then worker responses and advocacy isn't really there or is grossly misrepresented, in my opinion, but I'll get deeper into that in a bit. The reality is that a lot of cases are more nuanced than that, and it is just what the companies say to make themselves sound better than their real intentions. Types of mass deactivation gig workers face on delivery and rideshare apps. So mass deactivation doesn't always look the same. Platforms use a variety of methods to remove workers in bulk, sometimes subtle and sometimes more obvious, but all with the same result: cutting people off from their income. There's the soft deactivations where workers are quietly sidelined through inactivity flags or unable to identify you errors without ever being officially banned. These can be some of the more frustrating cases because workers are left in limbo, not technically deactivated, but also not receiving orders or income. All because the system that is supposed to filter what is and what isn't the person's face is not letting it through. What, you grew a beard or something and suddenly that's a problem? Or maybe you've just been off the platform for a while because you had other things to do. So you try to hop back on when you got those things done and suddenly bam, you're gone. Like, that's your fault because you have a life. Like, how dare you? Deactivation events are events that causes a lot of deactivations. This is like the platform-wide glitches that companies frame as accidents, but often leave many workers permanently locked out, and the company may promise a fix or publicize that everyone will be restored, yet in reality only a fraction of those workers ever get their accounts back, and the other ones were quality workers that they just didn't want to reactivate because, again, their liabilities in the company's eyes. The eligibility squeeze is one of the most interesting ones because they will raise requirements like stricter insurance rules or vehicle standards, which knocks out entire groups of workers at the same time. And these changes often come with very little warning and can disproportionately affect younger drivers or those who are already struggling with the costs of insurance because of previous driving history. Algorithmic purchases like automated fraud or compliance systems that sweep large numbers of accounts and often catching innocent workers like false flags or GPS errors, signal drops, or just declining too many orders can trigger removals, and appeals are rarely straightforward. And no, you're not supposed to be deactivated for declining too much, but it's not like it's never heard of either. They'll just give it a different name and then say they'll get to it, but never do. Background check rescreens are periodic reruns of background checks with stricter standards, removing thousands overnight. And sometimes the rules have changed since a worker first signed up, and in other cases, simple reporting errors can cost someone their livelihood for weeks or even months. Each method looks different on the surface, but they all serve the same purpose: shrinking the workforce quickly, quietly, and on the company's terms. Gig worker advocacy against mass deactivation. Now, there are a few advocacy groups and legal teams working on this, and the rise of mass deactivations has sparked organizing efforts among gig workers, among legal teams, and among just people in general, which they are fighting for due process rights, transparency in algorithms, and stronger legal protection. The challenge is that it isn't like this fight isn't happening. It's just the fight is under the guise of gig workers being misclassified as employees as a lot of times, and most gig workers don't want to be employees, as it would rip the flexibility from them, and in some cases it would lose their income potential entirely. There are people like Steve from the Rideshare Rodeo who's been a little bit more like focused on the gig worker side of things, but at the same time, that's not the majority of organizations that are on this. Some people just want a paycheck and not to solve the problem. Why gig economy platforms need fairer deactivation policies. The gig economy thrives on hard work of independent contractors, but mass deactivations expose a power imbalance that leaves workers vulnerable. If platforms truly value their workforce, which we know the truth, but they should value us higher, they must establish more fairer and more transparent systems. And policymakers, too, have a role in ensuring that flexibility does not come at the cost of basic economic security. How gig workers can protect themselves from mass deactivation. Now, here's the reality. It doesn't matter how reliable, how dedicated you are to your craft. The power to cut you off is always in the platform's hand, which is why the smartest thing a gig worker can do isn't just to work harder and just hope that you're never caught in the crossfire. It's to work smarter in protecting yourself. Diversify your gig portfolio. Never rely on just one app. If you only run on one app, a single deactivation can wipe your entire income overnight. Instead, build a portfolio of gigs. Food delivery, package runs, rideshare, grocery delivery, even niche platforms in your market. This way, if one app shuts you down, you got other streams to fall back on. Think of it like investing. Would you put all your money into a single stock? So why would you do the same for a single platform or a single source of income at all? Track and control your data. Keep your own records of mileage, expenses, and earnings. Platforms may cut access to your account history once you're deactivated, leaving you without a proof of income. So having your own system ensures that you're always in control of your numbers and not them. Even if it's something as simple as MileIQ, when it comes to your mileage tracking as a proof of income, is one of those tools that pays for itself. If you haven't downloaded MileIQ, make sure to go into the description and download that today and have access to the #1 mileage tracking tool on Google Play and in the App Store. Develop an exit strategy. Remember, the gig economy is an income bridge to what would be a long-term goal, and diversification buys you time, but the real long-term play is building a way out of dependency on gig apps. That means developing skills, connections, opportunities, something that lets you run your own operation, whether it's a small courier service, a niche delivery business, branching into other entrepreneurial paths, what have you. And that's exactly why I created my own build Build Your Own Delivery Service Provider course, a step-by-step framework to help gig workers go from being controlled by these apps to controlling their own future. The course is going to guide you to create your own business entity and foundation, methods to source restaurants and drivers with game-changing opportunities, work with top-of-the-line seamless technology for drivers and merchants, and resources and done-for-you contracts to protect you financially. You will also have access to high-level professional guidance to help you build your business foundation and support you as you reach greater heights. Check the link in the description and get started on how businesses serve customers and how gig workers will get greater opportunities with you. We are excited and looking forward to helping you secure your financial future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you hit like, subscribe. If you guys would like to learn more about services and gig platforms that we have talked about in the past and are offering to gig workers today, check out my website, drivenwild.com. And if you want to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening in the gig economy today and be in the know of what most people are talking about on each of your favorite platforms, make sure to check out the Gone Wild live clips and podcast channel, where we take the live streams we hold on Thursdays at 9 and cut them down to more digestible clips and have them posted there. Also, check out my Patreon for exclusive clips, full live stream replays, and other membership perks for self-employed individuals who want to grow and scale their business. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Rise up, shake off that 9 to 5 rust in this wild world.